Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D. Brief. This is the D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's
arts and entertainment scene.
This is the D.
Brief.
Hello and welcome to the Debrief for the week of August 27th, 2018. I'm your co-host. My name is Seth Ressler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
And I'm Jag.
And we are heading into a 3-day weekend.
Yes. I can't believe summer's coming to an end.
I can't either. It seems fast, doesn't it?
Yes.
Ugh. Well, we've got a lot going on in this episode. This, of course, is the podcast for anybody who is into the Detroit arts and entertainment scene. We like to think of it as your cure for FOMO, right?
Definitely.
Sure.
Got to know what's going on so you can keep up.
On today's episode, we have Gary Graff. He is a music writer for the Oakland Press, Billboard Magazine, New York Times Syndicate. We've had him on the show a number of times. This guy knows everything, not only on the national music scene, but here locally as well.
Definitely. He goes to all the shows.
Oh, my God.
Wonderful.
He goes to so many shows. It's crazy. He's really out and about, and I run into him from time to time. You met him at the Detroit Music Awards, right?
Yes, and at Mopop, too.
And I will make a confession. He looks exactly like my father.
That's so wild. Is it strange for you?
Yeah, it's odd.
Will you be afraid to ask him a dumb question?
No.
That he's going to take the car keys away from you? Or
No, yeah, maybe I'll get grounded. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, also on the show today, we have Jon Witz. He is the producer of the Ford Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival. That's happening in Royal Oak this year. Happens there every year. 21 years now.
It started in Pontiac. I don't know if you guys know that, but yeah. It's amazing it's been going on that long.
It's been going on for a long, long time. And of course, on Thursday, we have our in-depth interview. That is with Michael Rothstein. He is the Detroit Lions beat writer for ESPN and ESPN.com. So we'll find out everything we need to know about. You must be excited about this, Jag.
Yeah.
I am. My former Syracuse classmate, for one. But
That's
also, what's great about Mike is he doesn't just cover the X's and O's. Like, if you're not a football fan, you'll be interested in what he has to say because he covers a lot of the off-the-field stuff with the Lions that's got a real human interest side of it. So excited to talk to him about that.
So Seth and I will be able to have a conversation.
Right.
That's why he's
we'll
here.
Be able to, yes.
Great.
You guys will keep up just fine.
Very nice.
So that's on Thursday, but coming up, we've got all your news about Detroit concerts, comedy, plays, food, drink, and more.
This is the D.
Concert calendar.
All right, Becky, let's start with the concerts. What's going on this week?
I am so excited for this week because on Wednesday I get to go see Miguel again.
Your
For
boy.
The
This your
second
crush.
time this year. I saw him in March and now I'm seeing him again. He's at Freedom Hill. So,
You gonna throw clothing up on stage or anything like that?
we'll see.
No.
A scarf, maybe.
We'll see.
That's not what I was thinking.
Thursday, you have WNIC's 80s Summer Bash with another one of my favorites, totally different, Culture Club.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, my God. I love me some Boy George. And the B-52s at DTE.
I've got an interesting tidbit of trivia that I found out about the B-52s. but
Okay, bring
you
it.
got later in the show.
Oh,
I'm
all
just
right.
going to tease
A
it.
tease.
Yes.
Ooh, I can't wait. So September 1st is going to be Saturday. Breaking Benjamin and Five Finger Death Punch at DTE.
For the rock heads.
And T.I. at Shane Park.
For the hip-hop fans.
On Sunday, you got Counting Crows and Live at DTE.
For those of us that aren't in our 20s.
Correct. You have Joe 112, Jagged Edge next at Shane Park. And the big news for the weekend, 2 huge festivals for music lovers. Ford Arts, Beats, and Eats in Royal Oak. You got 200 performers on 10 stages, and we got an interview with the organizer of the show that'll be coming up later. The Detroit Jazz Festival, it is the 39th annual. It's the largest free jazz festival in the world.
That's cool.
Yes, great place. The main stage is at Campus Martius. There's 3 more at Hart Plaza. There's going to be jam sessions at the Marriott. New this year, you can get $10 virtual passes to watch all 4 stages online. If you have so many that you want to go to and you can't all physically obviously be there at once, or if you're like Jag and you don't actually want to go anywhere.
I was afraid you were going to say
sit at
that.
home, watch it on your computer.
See, I'm thinking like everybody has their phones at a concert. So you could be at Shane Park and pull up one of the other stages on your phone.
It's true, but that would kind of lose the point of live music.
Yes.
But that's a whole nother discussion. So the artist in residence for the jazz festival is Chick Corea. I mean, amazing.
Legendary.
And with a resident ensemble featuring Terry Lynn Carrington and Esperanza Spalding. So a big event coming up this week, a celebration, I would say, of Aretha Franklin's life. So her funeral is coming up this Friday, which is August 31st. It's not open to the public, but it's 10 a.m. at the Greater Grace Temple. Performers at her funeral include Stevie Wonder, you got Chaka Khan, Jennifer Hudson, Faith Hill, Ronald Isley, Fantasia.
That's an all-star lineup.
I mean, Bill Clinton is speaking.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. What an amazing tribute this is going to be.
So I have a question for you guys. When you pass away, who would you want to perform at your funeral?
A musical performer?
Sure.
I got to go with my favorite band of all time. I'd have to say Steven Tyler from Aerosmith.
You would want Steven Tyler to okay.
I'll be buried in my Tom Brady jersey, and Steven Tyler will be singing.
What song you want him to perform? Love in an Elevator?
Going down. That's probably where I'm going.
Oh, well.
Love in a Casket?
There you go.
What about you, Becky?
So do they have to, is this a fantasy thing, or they have to still be living at the moment?
Well, they're probably not really going to perform at your
I
funeral.
mean, I'm hoping
Well,
I
so-
outlive Steven Tyler.
Right. Yeah,
So it's hands down, I would say Prince.
that's a good choice.
And I would say Sometimes It Snows in April.
Okay.
But if they have to be alive, I might say Sting.
Okay.
I might say Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Yeah, sure.
Speaks to my soul. I might say Bono. And then number one, I'd say Miguel.
Yeah.
Well, if we kill her now, we could make that happen.
Hey.
Well, you have a dark streak in you tonight, and it's
Hey.
really concerning.
I have a dark streak in me.
If I'm killing one of you, it's you.
Oh, but speaking, if the public wants to get involved, and I know they do, to pay respects to Aretha, the 28th and 29th, she will be in state for public to pay their respects at the Charles H. Wright Museum. And there's also a Shane Park tribute concert on Thursday, the 30th, with Johnny Gill, the Four Tops, Gladys Knight, Dee Dee Bridgewater, Angie Stone, so many. You can get free tickets on Ticketmaster on that.
What I'm afraid of with that, and you know it's going to happen, it's a nice thing the Ticketmaster is doing because the tickets are free. There's
Yeah,
no
no
surcharges.
fees.
But Shane Park only holds a few thousand people.
You know what?
Those tickets are going to go for so much on the secondary market because people are going to want to be
You're
there for this
right.
concert. And it's
And
a
that'll be a
shame that
shame.
people are going to profit off this, but you know it's going to happen.
You're right. You're right.
All right, college football starting this weekend. We will tell you all about it in just a few.
Debrief.
Want more? Text the word Detroit to the number 444-999.
All right, Labor Day is coming up this weekend, which of course means that there's a number of big festivals going on all around the Metro Detroit area, including the Ford Arts, Beats, and Eats Festival that happens in Royal Oak. I had an opportunity to sit down with the producer. This is not the first time I've sat down with him because
Okay.
Jon Witz also produces the Meridian
Winter Blast.
Oh, yeah.
And so I talked to him, back in, I guess it was December.
Another
or
huge
whenever
event in the
it
area,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, when they did Winter Blast. But this year, just an absolute, what'd you say, like over 200 bands?
Yeah. It's the lineup is crazy. Pages and pages on their website.
AWOL Nation, Everclear, Gin Blossoms, the Spinners from right here in Detroit,
Yeah.
Eddie Money, Ben Folds, who's an amazing live performer if you've never seen him.
That's what I've heard. Sunday night, I think he is.
Yep, Matt Nathanson, Chris Jason, if you're into country, 38 Special. Sorry.
What?
Chris Jason, if you're into country.
Oh,
38
okay, I was
Special.
like,
38
wait.
Special.
You have a misplaced comma
yes,
there
I
as
did.
your
Sorry,
issue.
That was
You
totally
gotta-
38 Special is hold on loosely.
You got to
Right.
get your grammar going
Yeah,
correctly.
Rival Sons and more. So I actually had an opportunity to sit down with John and talk about this year's lineup. And, it's not just the beats. It's not just the
It's
musicians.
the arts and the eats.
Also the arts, and it's also the food.
I'm a fan of the eats.
I'm a fan of it all.
Yeah. Well, I started by asking about the art, and I asked him, what's going to be there this year that's new. Here's what he said.
We have a new exhibit from the Detroit Breakfast Club, which is a passionate group of artists that meet in Detroit and exchange, artwork and stories and processes. And they have an exhibit, they're probably 100 members plus of the club, and their gatherings are growing and growing. And they will have 9 tents with 2 artists each in there throughout the weekend, representing, I would say, definitely the spirit of art in the city from an emerging as well as seasoned artist. So we're excited about that.
Now, I've had to put together shows before, not shows this big, but when I was in radio, we'd have to put together like a summer concert series.
I've been in radio long enough to see how those things come together, yeah.
And there's always challenges. In fact, John and I were actually talking a little bit before the interview started about weather, and about keeping your fingers crossed when walk up, is it going to be sunny, things like that. So I was curious to ask him, what are some of the big challenges? And he told me about a number of them, but this one really caught my attention.
On the food side this year, it's been really interesting. One of the challenges has been that the labor market, more people are employed. So restaurants are having trouble getting good people working, so they don't have the extra staff. So some restaurants that if labor was available a little more easily, people that they know and trust and could work, for them, then I think we would have more restaurants that we would target to be here.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
It's probably true of the radio stations, too, because every radio station in this market pretty much shows up at Arts, Beats, and Eats.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
you need those promo team staffers that are sometimes making $10 an hour or whatever it is to staff those tents. I'd be curious when I go to see if those radio station tents are unmanned.
A little flimsy.
Speaking of putting shows together, you guys know what a rider is, right?
Correct, yeah.
This is like the list of... We talked about this with Jeff Horst last week.
Yeah.
Right. What he requested.
Right. When an artist, wants in their backstage room or tent or whatever it is when they go to perform, I'm always fascinated by this. I love reading the riders. I love seeing what
This is
people
this
ask
TMZ
for.
kind of stuff,
Green,
sure.
green M&Ms or ripe bananas.
1,000 brown M&Ms in a brandy glass.
Yeah.
Right. So I was curious, and I asked Jon, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen on a band's rider?
I think a fun one was from the B-52s, and I wouldn't call it strange, but I call it fun, is that, because of who they are and what they're known for with their hairstyles, we had to secure a salon and a stylist, and we used Aqua Salon in Royal Oak being a home base to do the hair, and they loved it. So it's not just strange ones, but there's creative ones and, ones that you want to support too, in addition to the ones that you roll your eyes on.
So when Miguel's going to play her funeral, we'll have to figure out what he wants in his...
Oh, yeah.
Can I have them do my hair on my rider?
I don't think...
Bring some wigs.
It's pretty easy.
Style the goatee
What do
a
you
little
need?
bit?
Some Pine Sol there?
Turtle wax.
Some shine.
So, of course, it's not just big national acts that play this. There's a lot of Detroit bands that are performing as well. And I'm, sure a lot of bands out there are curious, how do I actually get on stage at Arts, Beats, and Eats? So I asked Jon that.
Reach out to us early because of all the organization and getting the word out and the scheduling and making sure people fit in all the slots. I'm going to guess to say that our music selection closes sometime between June and July, so it's definitely better to contact us in April and May. But what we do is bands have to submit a piece of work, and we have a committee of all the stage managers review all the samples. Now, certainly there's some bands that we know, but each year we try to have 20 to 30% new bands in and give others a chance and work them in, and constantly grade bands from the stage managers, not just on, subjective things, but how well they sound, but are they there on time? What's their demeanor? What kind of crowd turns out?
So you guys, that's good for you to know when you apply to be a band on stage,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
I'm going to get in early. Yeah. Yeah.
Also be thinking what's on your rider.
Well,
right?
mainly I want to go to perform so that I can have a rider.
All right. What's on your rider?
I would like a masseuse dedicated to me at all times.
Okay.
I would like tea. I got to have my tea, and I got to have a nice variety. So
So you want to be able to pick in the moment? You don't have a specific tea you need before you went on stage?
Right.
Okay.
And,
You
if
never know.
I'm singing and, got to keep the vocal cords. So that's what I would go. Basically like a spa backstage.
What's on your rider?
For after the show, Kettle One and Oktoberfest, but not before because I
Mix
can't.
those
Mixed
two
together? Like a
No,
crazy beer tale?
no, not like a drop it in kind of thing. But I would start with one and go to the other.
Are you a big believer in beer before
Or
liquor?
liquor never sicker?
Or does it matter to you?
I try to stick to the liquor before beer generally, yeah, because beer before liquor does get me sick. A lot of things get me sick. But
Oh, boy.
food-wise, I want wings from Mr. Spots in Ann Arbor. They're my favorite wings in the world.
Okay.
And I want some lobster brought in from Maine. My lobster roll, wings, and then Kettle One and Oktoberfest.
It's all about the food and drink for you. What about you?
What's on my rider?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know.
You asked the question, and
I
now you're
know.
stuck.
I know, and I don't.
You could have thought about this when Becky and I were answering it.
You're
probably
just a
could've.
simple guy. You don't need much.
Yeah, I'm a simple man.
Yeah.
I don't have big needs.
Couple of T-shirts with nerdy sayings.
I was going to say
on 'em.
comic books. That's what should be in his rider.
Oh yeah. Action figures.
No. What would I gonna play backstage? Like,
Whatever.
know.
Whatever. Get into your Zen space.
Yeah.
no, I don't know.
Okay. Well,
So the last question I asked Jon, is, we were talking about the history of this event because, like I said, it's been around for 21 years.
Yes.
And it started a long time ago. And I was curious as to whether, because this is out in the suburbs, and obviously there are other big events like Jazz Festival that happens
In the
downtown.
city.
Is there a city versus suburbs tension in the history of this event? event. And here's what he said.
There was actually some controversy because Detroit had the Jazz Fest at the time, so it was like a suburb versus city thing. And I think we've all learned now that you can have multiple events on Labor Day weekend. It just helps the region. State Fair thrives, Jazz Fest thrives, Arts Beats and Eats thrives. But at the time, it was like it's the county trying to challenge the city, and I think that the media and anyone taking it that way, I think that was misplaced, and we've proven that all events can thrive, and just it's kind of a message to everybody: stay in town, for Labor Day weekend.
I think a lot of people try to go up north one last time Labor Day
Right.
weekend. Now there's just so many reasons to stay down here.
Avoid the traffic. And my personal best hack for Arts Beats and Eats is ride your bike.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's nowhere to park. And even if you don't live near enough that you feel comfortable riding your bike, even if you just park, 8 blocks away or something like that.
Or just take an Uber or a Lyft, too.
Well, you can do that, but yeah, ride your bike. They have great bike parking.
Those bird scooters are all over the place now, too,
Or
right?
scooter.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a bird scooter. I'm gonna find it down. I want to find one downtown, and
Ride
then
it
I'm just
all
gonna
the way?
ride it all the way up to Royal Oak. I'll just
Go
cruise
down
up,
Woodward.
Cruise up Woodward. Yeah, exactly.
All right, so it's Labor Day weekend, Arts Beats and Eats Festival in Royal Oak. Go check it out. Hey, last week I was mocked
By everyone.
Well, no.
How is this different? Seth calls that Tuesday.
Yeah.
In particular, I was
Oh.
mocked by a cast member of Mad TV.
What?
And I'm going to tell you all about it.
The D3. The D3.
Sports Report.
Jag, what's going on with the sports?
The Holy Grail here in Michigan, college football back this weekend. A couple highlights. The big game is Michigan at Notre Dame. Huge rivalry, national TV. That's out in South Bend, Indiana, Saturday night at 7:30. Number 14 is Michigan's ranking for bragging rights to start the season. Michigan State is ranked higher. They're ranked 11th. They host Utah State at home in East Lansing Friday night. Also, for the equal opportunity for our other graduates in the area, Central is at Kentucky Saturday afternoon. Eastern and Western Michigan are both home Friday night. Eastern hosts Monmouth, and Western Michigan hosts my alma mater. They host the Syracuse football team on Friday night as well.
Who are you rooting for there?
Syracuse. I got to
Yeah,
root for
that's-
the place I'm still paying student loan debt to.
It makes sense.
Oh, and then once you finish paying off your loans, you can start rooting for somebody else?
No, I'll still play. I'll still root for Syracuse. Although my student loans will be paid off in 2 months. I'm excited.
Oh, wow. We have to have a
congratulations.
party for that.
All right. Also in the world of college football, on a much more serious note, this has just been the story of the week, and I'm sure
Yeah.
even not being sports fans, you guys have seen this. So Ohio State's Urban Meyer, we've talked about this before, may or may not have covered up his assistant coach being involved in domestic violence, and Ohio State conducted their internal investigation, and now the celebrity highest paid employee of the state of Ohio, Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer, was suspended an entire 3 games for his role in this whole mess. And again, this is not just being pro-Michigan and anti-Ohio State. This is just
No.
being pro-human
Human.
being and
Yeah.
anti-domestic violence.
Correct.
And I'm not trying to single out Columbus or Ohio State because this is true in a lot of places, but it goes back to football being more important than domestic violence and all these other social issues because they just kind of slapped him on the wrist and that was it.
Can I ask what would have been the appropriate reaction here? Should he have gone to the authorities? Should he have gone to the university?
I think he should have. I think they should.
Which?
Look, it's a hindsight 2020 thing. It's really hard to say what he should have done. Basically, anything more than he did.
Right. Anything more than ignoring it.
Should have reported to the in a perfect world where there wasn't all this money flowing into the program. Reported to the university. If the university doesn't act, report to the police.
And here's
Yes.
why I asked the question is because let's say that there's somebody out there listening to this who is aware, they work in a work
Oh,
environment
sure,
and they're
sure.
aware of
What should I
something
do?
going on. What should you do? Should you report it to, a higher up, a boss, somebody,
I think
your
you should
employer?
start there in terms of trying to handle it the right way. And if you don't get the proper redress from your employer,
higher.
you got to go to the police. And I think what I'm hopeful for, and again, this is as a guy I'm saying this, so I don't really know, but I'm hopeful that in this era of Me Too and heightened awareness, that authorities and people in positions of power are more likely to listen to an issue like this than they were even a year ago. I'm hopeful. I don't know if that's true, but that's my hope.
See,
Yeah.
I agree, but my gut feeling is that you should go to law enforcement first, that's really where this is dealt with. But I'm not an expert in the subject. I don't
Because
know.
you feel like the university would not have.
No, I I think it's a law enforcement issue.
yeah,
I think
well.
it is. That's what it is. Like that's who's supposed to handle it. But I don't know. I haven't been in the
that makes
situation.
sense too.
But I mean, you could say if you went to the school first, they would cover it up in the interest of PR. You could say that the law enforcement could cover it up too, theoretically, if it's a high profile. We see it all the time with celebrities and athletes. So we're going to kind of try to sweep this under the rug.
Yeah.
So it's basically it's laughable, the punishment that he got.
It really is.
It's 3 games out of an 11,
despicable.
12 game season, and it's just
That's nothing.
It shows how much powerful college football is than social issues like domestic violence,
Right.
and it's really sad. Let's move on to something a lot more fun to talk about, which is the Tigers now having a bobblehead in the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame and Museum, which I think is awesome.
Okay, so I know there's bobbleheads and they're fun and whatever, but there's a National Bobblehead Hall of Fame.
I feel like that's the story.
Like that. Okay, so there's an actual Hall of Fame,
Right, like
for
somebody did this.
bobbleheads.
So it was a guy who got started collecting bobbleheads about 15, 20 years ago, and they started doing some online stuff, got a collection of 500, then 1,000 bobbleheads, and actually is now going to have a brick-and-mortar location in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, of all places, for this National Bobblehead Museum. So if you're a Tigers fan, you like collectibles, this is actually pretty cool. It's going to honor the Tigers' 4 World Series championship teams, 1935, 45, 68, and 84. It features our mascot Paws holding 2 of the World Series trophies, and the other 2 are by his feet on the ground as he stands over an Old English D, which is that's a cool collector's item.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
right.
Can you guys guess how many of those World Series years I was alive in?
Well,
1.
Thank you.
Same one I was alive
Passed.
in, 84.
You passed.
You're only as young as you feel.
That's right.
Other Tigers news, their 2019 schedule is out, which it's odd it gets released so early, but we know they start out playing indoors in Toronto. They open the season at the end of March. And this is the part that always blows my mind every year. The home opener, which is a national holiday here in Detroit, the first game at Comerica every year, it is April 4th.
Chilly.
And we saw that this year with a lot of games getting rained out and snowed out
Yes.
and too cold. Start the season in Miami or Texas or like have those teams have a bunch of home games at the beginning of the year. I know you want to be equitable with scheduling, but who, aside from being hammered on opening day, who wants to sit at Comerica in the first week of April?
Not just that. I would think if they just did an economic study, like it would actually show
Exactly.
that the weather impacts.
They've
ticket
done that.
sales.
They've
for
lost
sure.
tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on ticket sales because
So why do it?
I
Because
don't
I
know.
guess there aren't enough warm weather teams. There's a lot of cold weather teams. You look at like Boston and New York and
I just think
Pittsburgh
that
and Philly. And
the baseball season is too long. I think that's the answer.
my
It's
wife
too
would
long.
agree with you.
It's
my
too
wife would absolutely agree with you. It's a constant fight over the remote in our living room. Red Wings. This is another important thing for Detroiters. It kind of broke this past week that the Red Wings have taken Hockey Town off the center ice logo at Little Caesars Arena. It's always been there. When they were
That's
winning all those
wild.
championships, like this was Hockey Town. And now it's just the Red Wings logo. And they're like, oh, what happened there? And then, Becky, you grew up here. Hockey Town is a big deal.
Oh, a huge deal. Like, that's just what it is. We're Hockey Town.
That's the identity of this
yeah.
whole area, and I don't know if they felt like okay, it's a throwback to the more successful days, and the team is kind of struggling a little bit now. That's just my own conjecture, but
I don't know.
It's just odd. They just took it away.
I was not able to see any reasoning. Like, I didn't see any articles or info out there that said why.
Right. And if you want to have a good old-fashioned time, WWE SmackDown coming to Little Caesars Arena this Thursday night. Also this weekend, Lions finish their preseason at home against the Browns Thursday night at Ford Field. Tigers on the road this week. They're at Kansas City and at the Yankees.
All right, a Detroit restaurant is being recognized by PETA. We'll tell you all about it in just a moment.
This is the Debrief.
About last week.
All right, Becky, what'd you do last week?
Oh, let's see. I went to a lot of...
Let me count the ways.
Let me pick something
Let
from
me
my
see.
little calendar book here.
my black book of fun.
Right.
That could be something else.
Well, high school's starting up, so I have been attending a lot of soccer events. But we did go out to eat on Friday night, I believe it was, to Detroit Fleet.
So I don't know what that is.
That's the one in Ferndale, right?
It's in Ferndale on 9 Mile. And the concept is food trucks with surrounding a patio and then also an indoor part. So it's kind of a food truck lot. So it's a great atmosphere, especially on a nice weather night. You can bring dogs, there's kids, there's people of all ages. They have, I think they had 4 food trucks there.
And are these permanently stationed? Because I know
No, they come and go. They change them up.
Oh, okay.
They change them up. Now, the owners of Detroit Fleet also own Delectable, a very popular food truck here in town. So that one is usually there. They had Mac Shack and Pizza One. And then they also have their own kitchen. So they do a nice menu of sliders and tacos, street tacos, and fries, and a really great beverage program. They had great beers, like all sorts of selections, lots of different cocktails. So it was fun. And I think it's a great place to go if you have a mixed group of people that
Different
all kind
tastes.
of have a taste for something different.
I love the
So-
food truck thing. I like
it's
trying
great.
different food
I
trucks.
poked my head in there earlier this spring before they were like fully up and running
Sure.
for the season, and I was like, it made a mental note. I'm like, I need to come back here. This is going to be awesome. Like, the restaurant's open, but the food trucks weren't there yet, and I'm like,
Okay.
oh, I need to come back here. This is a cool
Yeah, and
spot.
I think it'll still be nice in not so nice weather because the inside is fairly large as well. They have a really nice bar, and they have live music every Friday. They have brunch, so it was a great time. We enjoyed it a lot.
Nice. Well, I had a big comedy weekend. My girlfriend texted me, I think, while we were actually recording
Oh,
the
her
show
boyfriend.
right, yeah,
last
yeah.
Her
week.
boyfriend was coming.
Right.
Her other boyfriend.
So,
Yeah.
yes, she's got a crush on Ari Spears.
Okay.
Who I honestly, I didn't really know who he was.
I remember the name, but that's it.
He
Yeah.
was a member of the cast of Mad TV, which I was never a big, that wasn't a show I watched a lot.
Me neither.
But he was coming to the Punchline in Southfield. And the Punchline is an urban club, right? I mean,
Sure.
So, it books different types of comedians than, say, Mark Ridley's over in Royal Oak. And I've been before, but she hadn't been. So we decided to buy tickets. She bought the tickets. She splurged. She went for the premium seats.
Wow.
Right? So we go there Saturday night. I didn't realize what premium seats meant. This club is, they pack them in tight. Like, this is this is one of those, boy, I hope there's no fire going on type seating arrangement.
There's no escaping.
Oh, I mean, it was crazy how tight it was. And we go in the front door, and we asked the guy at the front door, all right, where are the premium seats? And he says, oh, it's any of those leather couches on stage.
On stage.
Oh.
He's not kidding.
Oh, boy.
I mean, the amount of room that Ari had to work with was basically like 6 feet by,
Little
6
square.
feet. Right, little square. And there's, 4 leather couches on stage immediately to his left. Right? And I look at it and, my girlfriend says, which one do you want to sit in? And here's the thought that goes through my head, because I know what it's like, being a comedian. You can only see like the first 3 rows. Everything else gets lost in the lights.
So you're like, I'll take row 4.
Well, I definitely didn't want the first row.
Right.
Right? And I'm sitting here going, there's not going to be a lot of white people in this club tonight.
Okay.
I'm going to be the only white person
Up there.
that he can see through the lights.
Is this the reverse of like if you would take your girlfriend to Mark Ridley's where
Yes.
it was mostly a white crowd?
Right. You were
It
talking about-
absolutely was. And I'm like, every time he makes a joke where it's like an aside to like the white person in the room,
Yeah.
he's going to look right at me.
I mean, at least you knew it was coming.
I knew
You
it
were
was
preparing.
coming, and so we took the second leather couch. The cocktails were great. Honestly, like, I don't normally rave about chicken tenders. The chicken tenders were actually amazing.
What?
Would you please tell Heather J next time we speak to her?
Yes.
But sure enough, every time he told a joke, there was one point where he said something nice about Obama, and then he looked at me. He's like, "You better applaud."
Oh
He's
my
like,
goodness.
"Look around you. You're in the middle of Wakanda right now." So
See, now, if I had known this would be the situation, I would have actually left the house that night and like
go.
sat in the back where he can't
Right,
see me
right.
and let him make fun of you. I would have enjoyed that.
He was hilarious. I mean, he was really, really funny. There were times, there was actually the woman in the leather couch seat in front of us, the first one there, had to get up and use the restroom.
Oh, no.
At one point during the show,
Yeah.
literally gets up and like had to be like, excuse me, and like walk.
Oh, gosh.
And he couldn't believe it. He'd never been in a situation like that. He made fun of her for the full like
Oh,
5 minutes that she was in the
boy.
restroom.
Yes, of
and then she
course.
came back and sat there because he's like, it's going to be awkward because we're all sitting here waiting for her to come back because we know she's coming back at some point. She comes back, she sits down, and like half an hour later, she has to go again.
No.
And this time, not only does she get up, and she's like, excuse me, Mr. Spears.
Oh, she raised her hand.
She walks like right by her husband, who was on the couch with her, also decides he has to go. At that
Oh,
time.
gosh.
Moral of the story, don't have that many drinks if you're going to be on
Right.
stage at a show, because once you break that seal, forget it.
Right, and I would so sit there going, I'm so glad that we did not take.
Okay.
But that must have taken the heat off of you.
Yeah, it did take the heat off me. I mean, honestly, he was very fun. This is a guy who knows what he's doing. He's a pro.
So she's satisfactory second boyfriend material.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Your first boyfriend always has to approve of your second boyfriend.
Well, right? Yeah, I mean, that just makes it easier all around.
Yes, absolutely. All right, coming up in just a few, we've got music writer Gary Graff. We're going to talk to him about everything that's going on in Detroit music.
The D. Free.
Food and drink.
Hey, Becky, what's going on in the restaurant and bar scene here in
I have
Detroit?
a few vegan stories today. Top one being Detroit Vegan Soul is recognized by PETA.
Ugh, PETA.
What?
I hate PETA.
Why?
Why?
I have no problem if you're going to be a vegetarian or a vegan, but just like dumping pig's blood on people and like making you seem like you're a terrible person if you eat meat. I love animals. They're delicious. I have no problem if you're going to be a vegan or vegetarian, but everything about they're like the extreme version. They drive me crazy.
I mean, that's why a lot of people are vegan is because they don't want to eat animals. So,
and that's fine, but don't be belligerent and militant about it like PETA is.
Yeah, I don't know if they are so much anymore, but anyway, they've recognized these ethically sourced places. So
Boy, way to suck the wind out of those.
I know. I mean,
Hey, good job.
I'm that guy.
I know.
Well,
we have heard. We've talked about this place a lot, Detroit
We
Vegan
have.
Soul.
And I would eat there. I have no
great
problem
things.
with them.
So,
Yeah. Well, it's a recognition.
was there a particular dish?
Yes, they're catfish tofu. They named this one of America's top 10 vegan dishes. So this is made with cornmeal battered tofu, a broccoli and corn medley, red skin potatoes, and onions with some hush puppies on the side.
So here's the one thing I do find weird about vegetarian. And again,
Yeah.
I'm not a vegetarian. I'm trying to eat more vegetables. I'm mostly failing.
Ditto.
But I don't like when they try and make it taste
the
like,
fake version. Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like
I
if you're gonna do
do.
vegetables, just do vegetables. You
Right.
know, and don't try and make it like a meat dish or like a
Yeah, and you're going to have your protein or whatever, but yeah, so you'd rather it just be cornmeal tofu than
Well,
catfish.
Look, I haven't tried the catfish tofu. Apparently,
Yeah.
it's very good. But you know, I mean, I'm talking about those like Morningstar patties that they have.
You know, it's funny. My wife actually
I don't
likes
mind
them.
those.
She has me get the chicken ones. I've had them. They're not bad. Sometimes she's not vegetarian, but she'll eat vegetarian occasionally. So I made the Kroger run for us today, and I saw vegetarian hamburger patties. I'm like, all right, I'll
They're
give
just
it a
not.
shot.
They're not created equal. I feel like if I'm not going to eat beef, just don't eat beef. I don't want to fake something made from plants that's trying to taste like beef.
right.
It's like
Yeah.
the Detroit comedian that does the Quicken commercials. Not
Keegan-Michael Key.
Keegan-Michael
Yeah,
Key. Yeah.
where he like goes around and explains things to people,
Oh,
and he's in
yes.
that restaurant, and he's like, it's a blah 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 blah. It's a hamburger that's plants trying to be a hamburger.
But yes, yeah. So
All right. Sorry, Detroit Vegan Soul. We've heard wonderful things about you. We didn't
I
mean
should have
that,
saved my
yes.
Peter rant for
no,
later. I'm sorry.
it's not. And you guys, like, you know, I love bacon, and they do a BLT there, and the bacon's made from coconut. It sounds so strange, but it is amazing. It's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah. Kuzo's Chicken and Waffles. Okay, so not vegetarian, not vegan. They are expanding to a second Woodward location. This place has been packed since the day it opened. So the first location is on the Avenue of Fashion. They leased space in a mixed-use location near the Bonstel Theater and the Whole Foods.
Okay.
They're in Midtown.
And there's a line. Like we went bike riding
Always a
earlier this
wait.
summer. There
Yeah.
was a long line at this place.
Yeah, and they have like jambalaya and stuff like that too. So it's owned by former NFL player Ron Bartel.
There you go.
Have you guys done chicken and waffles?
It's not my thing.
I had it at Grey Ghost for brunch. I mean, if you have anything there, it's going to be good.
Yeah, they
but
do a
I
great
had we went there for actually our first wedding anniversary. We went there for brunch on a Sunday morning, and if it's not one of those things that I'll eat just for the sake of eating it, but if it's done right, and it was done right there, it's outstanding.
I had the opportunity to go to Roscoe's Chicken and Waffles, which I don't know why. I don't know if this is true, but in my mind, that's always like what I think of. This is in Los Angeles.
It's the legendary
right, that's
kind
the
of
legendary.
spot.
I
Yeah.
was probably in a Snoop Dogg song.
was
or
name dropped
something
in
when I was a
about
kid,
50
and that's
hip-hop
why I know.
songs back in the
right,
day.
and so that's why I think of it. But I actually had the opportunity to do that for the first time.
Did
this
you
year.
enjoy it?
Yeah, it was fine. It was good. Yeah.
So, if you have a dog and you enjoy your wine and you'd like to combine the two, there's Wine Night with Dogs at Detroit Shipping Company coming up on Wednesday night.
Is your dog
6
like
to 9.
red or white wine?
I don't have a dog,
Oh.
but I think if I did, it would probably be a red wine loving dog.
And yours? You have a
My
dog.
dog whines a lot. He doesn't drink. He doesn't drink a lot of wine, but
He's more of a beer drinker?
yeah, he is.
Yeah.
But his name is Brady. Of course, he's going to be a beer drinker.
Oh,
not a
there
wine
you
drinker.
go.
But it's funny to do wine night with dogs. The things people love it.
Your dog is named Brady? I mean, I get it. I know why.
Yes.
And my wife went along with it. It's
Wow. She loves you.
Yeah, all right.
I love that little guy.
So Judy Blume, I'm sure you guys back in the day read her books.
Oh,
right?
Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing
Yes.
and Super
you,
Fudge.
Are You There, Goddess Me Margaret?
Yes, love those books.
So she actually stopped by. She was in Detroit and she went to eat at Lady of the House.
Mm-hmm.
And so Chef Kate Williams is the owner there.
Mentioned her several times on this podcast.
Oh my gosh, she's wonderful. Judy Blume signed Kate Williams' copy. Original copy of Are You There, Goddess?
Oh,
Me,
that's
Margaret.
cool.
Yeah, so she inscribed it. Thank you for a fabulous meal. I'm happily stuffed. Love, Judy Blume.
She's even an author in the way she signs something. Like she's a wordsmith with that too.
Yeah. So a couple of openings continuing with their little vegan theme. Unburger Grill is now open in Dearborn. It's a vegan fast food concept. And a popular Detroit pop-up called Electric Plate. They're also a vegan joint. They're opening a brick and mortar store in Oak Park on Greenfield and 10 Mile. And then in New Center, there's a new location for the Bricks Wine Bar. They moved out of West Village, another new center. And in the works is a second location of Supino's.
Becky, you introduced me to Supino's, and it is my favorite pizza in Detroit. I know I'm not a good Detroiter by saying I don't like Detroit-style pizza, but that pizza is my favorite in
too.
town.
Yeah, so Dave Mancini's going to open up a second place and do some catering and stuff too out of it.
On the way, Time Magazine just named a Detroit hotel one of the world's 100 greatest places. We'll tell you which one it is.
The Deep Brief.
All right, Becky, Jag, you know how it works. We have regular guests in here from time to time, people who are authorities on subjects that they know more than we do.
Yes,
right?
experts in their field.
We
Absolutely.
respect their authority.
And this is a guy that we've had on the podcast before, and this guy knows his stuff. And I know that you met him when the Detroit Music Awards came
Yes.
up, and you were very excited. I want to introduce Gary Graff, music writer for the Oakland Press, Billboard, New York Times Syndicate, and a number of other publications. Gary, thanks for coming on the show.
Do your listeners know you do this show naked?
They do now.
That was
Way to ruin it for everybody.
sorry.
We haven't got the camera for Facebook Live, but when we do,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
They will know.
Thank you for dropping by. We've had you on the show a number of times before, and of course,
You have.
You're out all the time. I mean, I always see you on Facebook. How many shows are you going to this year?
I don't count because there's part of it that's great and part of it's that's really depressing. But there are. I just came off of a week recently. It was 6 in a row.
Wow.
And it's part of that is summer, but there's a lot going on, and if you're going to do your job right, you have to pay attention to it and be there.
And be nocturnal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you prefer the summer months where you're out at these big shed, these outdoor venues, or do you prefer being in the clubs, the smaller places in the winter and the fall?
Kind of both.
Okay.
There's a lot to be. There's good things to be said about it, both.
Right.
So
I agree. I like them all as well.
yeah, I mean, you and I were in a field not too long
Yes,
ago,
yeah.
at the dusty field on the Detroit River,
Correct.
and that was a good time
That
too.
was wonderful. Right.
Well, there's
We won't tell them anything about what you did that day.
That was it. No.
But I
naked
was
too?
I was happy I had bail money there.
What happens at Mopop
Stays at Mopop.
Well, let's ask about some of the big music stories that are going on. Obviously, one of the biggest ones around here in Detroit is the Aretha Franklin funeral. which is coming up.
Worldwide, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's I think it was a bit of a wake up to people in Detroit, just how big a deal she is around the world, just how much heritage there is, just how much her music means to people. Because this was a Mount Rushmore death.
Yeah.
And and you're going to see it come Friday, at the funeral. I mean, not everybody gets a former president to eulogize them, and there may be more former presidents that wind up showing up. And not everybody gets Stevie Wonder to visit them at their bedside and then sing for them at the funeral. But it really has been a worldwide mourning.
You're right. I mean, I was in Los Angeles when this happened, and it took over the news.
Yeah, CNN. I remember that day all like nothing.
Right.
for a
CNN
good-
had breaking
for a
news
good
that was
hour and a half.
actual breaking news for a while.
Right. And
True.
real news.
Yeah,
Ta-da.
real
And,
news.
and Gary, to sort of the opposite of what you just said is I'm looking through my Facebook feed of all these people outside Detroit, and they're, oh my God, Aretha Franklin. And I'm saying, no. you have no idea what it's like to be in Detroit right now. It's a whole nother level.
The story has a lot more legs here and a lot because, she's from here. She lived here. And, she made her mark on the community. We should acknowledge both good and not good. And I think we're going to see more of the latter come out after the funeral. Right now it's hands off the other side of the story. But, as the estate is challenged and those machinations go on, it's going to be a little more illuminating. For now, we're remembering Aretha for what we want to remember her for, which is the music. Right. And hands down, some of the finest, most groundbreaking music you'll find from any artist.
I know it sounds like a strange question to say, and I apologize if I'm phrasing it this way. You don't want to say, what are you looking forward to at a funeral?
Right.
But between the Shane Park concert on Thursday and then the service on Friday, are there any tributes or performances that you're particularly interested in?
I think I'm interested in all of them. I'm always interested to see how people handle grief and mourning and turn it into celebration. Mm-hmm. And I think this is going to be a celebration.
No doubt.
I think it really has been as well. We've known she was sick for years. I mean, her deaths are always come as a surprise, but not a shock. And so, it'll be really interesting to hear what everybody has to hear, what songs they choose to perform. I think, Stevie Wonder, of course, will be very, very emotional.
Sure.
They were legitimately close friends and, very important parts of each other's lives. It'll be interesting to see what the children do. She has musically inclined children and grandchildren, to see what they do. What's Bill Clinton going to say? What's Jesse Jackson going to say? The funeral is going to be a marathon.
Really a celebration of her life.
It will be, and the concert the night before will be as well. It'll be, hopefully it's efficient. They say it's going to be 6 to 9 p.m. I have yet to be to anything like that really runs, that tightly together. But the feeling should be good there too. And I'm glad they're doing something musical too, because this thing they're going to do in New York in November has kind of hung over everything. Like, fine, but what are we going to do here? She's Detroit, we're Detroit. What are we going to do? So at least we are doing something, although I'm sure what they're going to do in New York in November will, in terms of big names, really eclipse that.
Sure.
But that's because it's in New York, and that's because it's Clive Davis who really
putting it together,
who really jump-started her career again. Pun intended, during the 80s. Yeah. He's putting it together. That's where he's from. It's a lot easier to get big artists, to do things in New York still than it is in Detroit.
Do you have a favorite moment of hers? I mean, she's obviously...
my favorite moment is a personal one, and it's the very first time I interviewed her, and we did it at the house out in Bloomfield Hills that burned down, the one she had all her memorabilia in. And it was and this was right when she was going to put out the Who's Zoomin' Who, the Freeway of Love album. And so it was a 2:00 interview, so I figured, okay, 2:00, went and had some lunch, drove out to her place in Bloomfield. As soon as I walked in, she had done the whole soul food dinner for the photographer and I. I just looked at the photographer. I said, "You and I are gaining some weight today because you don't say no to the Queen."
No.
And it was fabulous.
Right.
The dinner was fabulous. My stomach was not so much, but at the end of the day, and that was of course that's a personal kind of moment. I did get to interview her for Billboard for the 60th anniversary of her career, of her first album. And that was nice because it was the most forthcoming she was about a lot of things. She was a very guarded person, a very private person. But I think she felt, well, in later years, and anybody, when you're facing your own mortality, maybe you open it up. Mm-hmm. Just a little bit more, and she did, and she understood that the 60th anniversary of a career is really something special. So I got a few things I didn't hear about before about her working with, specifics about particular producers, particular sessions, particular songs, but still not all the way.
Right.
That's and there are a lot of things we will never know everything about the Queen, and maybe as it should be.
On another note, we've got a big event coming up Labor Day weekend. That, of course, is the Jazz Festival. Tell us a little bit about it and what you're looking for.
Yeah, the Detroit Jazz Festival. I think this is year 33. I want to say maybe. I could be wrong about
more.
That. It might be more.
Yeah, 39 or something.
Are we on 30? I know we're coming close to a big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So it's the world's largest free jazz festival, as in not paid for, not free jazz, not but free jazz, and it's just a splendid event. I remember when I came to Detroit in 1982, it was the third year. And it was already very cool. I mean, down by the riverfront, all these stages, world-class jazz entertainment. I mean, Chick Corea, artist in residence. How are you going to go wrong with that? Straight Ahead having the one, not the first all-female jazz band, but I think the biggest and most successful and really a groundbreaker. They're getting back together for their 25th anniversary. So, and you just go down the list and it's, can I be in 5 places at once? It's that kind of festival.
I was going to ask, how do you cover an event like this?
You get a few people is what you do. And
He has a team.
And you deputize them.
Right.
That's how
Delegate.
that's how you cover something like that. But you also go into it realizing you're not going to hear every note that's played. So you prioritize, you pick, you choose. Nice thing about jazz, without being pejorative towards jazz, is that it's not like a reader is going to slay you if you missed somebody playing Freebird.
Right.
So you can catch 20 minutes of Chick Corea and a half hour of John Scofield and just talk about at an event like that. You're talking about the scene. Mm-hmm. You're talking about the vibe. You are talking about what they played, because they do play interesting things. And certainly, in the wake of Aretha's passing, the song selection is going to be very interesting as well. But I like to call it a needle drop experience, because almost no matter what you choose to do at any given moment down there is worthwhile. And they have funnel cakes. So how
they have all kinds of great things.
So how bad can that be?
Right.
Speaking of funnel cakes, is there any cannibalization you think that goes on between Jazz Fest and Arts Beats and Eats? You think there are people?
You're going to talk about cannibalization with people for a second.
Let's not go there.
Yes, there is. I mean, one of the Arts Beats and Eats was kind of created by L. Brooks Patterson as a way to try to get people out of the city and into Oakland County. It worked for a while. Good people took over the Jazz Fest. They have a financial endowment that allows them to be a real world-class jazz festival, so they got some of that back. And now they along with the Michigan State Fair, the Hamtramck Labor Day weekend festival, all these events coexist nicely. We're a big metro area, and there are enough people to go around, and there's enough entertainment to go around for all those people. So hopefully you have people. I don't know. I don't know how many people can say, okay, one day I'm doing Jazz Fest, one day I'm doing Arts Beats and Eats, and hit each of the big 4.
Oh, that would be me.
Not to mention
that would be me.
Yeah, that would totally be Beckett.
I've been spending all summer getting my liver ready for this, so it's in training.
No, actually, the secret
they all
is
have-
not to drink too much, so you can keep going.
And they all have funnel cakes.
They all do.
Only one has pierogi though. So
Hamtramck,
keep that in mind. But if I and again not at the expense of the other festivals, but if somebody said I only have time to go to one, I would always steer them towards the Jazz Festival because and I would hope the others would not disagree too strenuously. How's that? Yeah. Because it is a world-class event. It really is. And, all over the world, they know they come. You do run into people, fans who come in every year to be in Detroit to hear this music and be part of this festival.
What I like about this Jazz Fest, I spent 3 years in New Orleans, and Becky spent a lot of time down there too, I know. The Jazz Fest in New Orleans is a huge event, but it's not
It doesn't
jazz.
mean jazz.
It's like I've seen Ed Sheeran, I've seen Billy Joel, and I've seen, I think, other rock acts there.
Sting.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
But this is an actual legitimate jazz fest.
This
People
one
appreciate
has
the art. Yeah.
this one has remained jazz. It's had its moments where it's gone more pop, but it's always been jazz at its core, and now it's very, very jazz. Mm-hmm. So it's wonderful.
We mentioned all the concerts that you've been to this summer. I do wonder, did you have a favorite moment this summer? Something that you saw
As
on
if I
stage
can remember them. No, actually this year I did David Byrne at the Fox Theater.
Oh, wow.
That was not only the best concert of the summer, but one of the 5 best of my life.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
yeah. And, interestingly, the Talking Heads Speaking in Tongues concert, the Stop Making Sense show, is one of the other 5. So not surprising,
wow.
but this was just next level staging, no fixed instruments on stage. It was like going to a drumline competition, except with musicians playing really great songs from the Talking Heads and David Byrne. So inventive, but musically so electrifying. And, the performances were just great as well. And these guys had to learn tough choreography up there. It's funny, I wound up just at random sitting next to Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers that night. He was in town to visit his mom. And I'm kind of watching him watch it because there's that sense of, the Chili Peppers are a good concert act too. And you could see the transition from wanting to not like it a whole lot to envy, to him turning around and looking at me and saying, "This is bleeping great."
Yeah.
And no, that was one of those transformative nights where you walked out of there saying my life just elevated from the 3 hours I spent at the Fox Theater. A lot of people did. Yeah. A lot of people did, but that was heads and above. But it's been a good summer. It's been a busy summer. But even just the other night, Government Mule doing The Dark Side of the Mule, doing a set of Pink Floyd songs with the Avett Brothers, with the Mayfair Salute, joining them, the Magpie Salute, joining them on stage as part of it. They really hit the tone right. It wasn't entirely a tribute concert because they made it their own. But if you were a Pink Floyd fan, you were in freaking heaven. With the lasers.
That's the best balance there. That sounds
and everything
great.
else. But it's been, on the whole, it's been a very good summer.
Well, that's awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for stopping by. We always love hearing from you because you're just so well informed and you know everything that's going on in the scene. If people want to follow you on social media, how can they do that?
There are Gary Graff on Music on Facebook and Graff on Music on Twitter, theoaklandpress.com. In the entertainment section, and billboard.com when I have stuff there.
Awesome. Well, Gary Graff, thanks so much for stopping by.
Nice being here.
Can't get enough.
This is the D3.
Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your favorite shows.
Becky, let's talk about a few of the things that are going on around town.
Sure. So there was an article in Time Magazine recently, and they named the Detroit Foundation Hotel as one of the world's 100 greatest places to visit.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Detroit Foundation Hotel opened just, a year and a half ago, barely, at a former fire station on West Larned.
Now, you and I have actually got an opportunity to go tour this.
Yes. Yeah. So I had been as a guest, not in the guest rooms, but in the restaurant a few times in the bar. But yeah, we got to take the full tour with the general manager.
Yeah. So Emily T. Gale put this together. She's like the one person who listens to this podcast.
She's
she's
our friend of the pod.
Right.
She's best friend of the pod.
Yeah. She's our bestie.
This is Say Nice Things About Detroit, Emily. That Emily.
And Iron Man Emily. Yeah.
Yes, and so she put together a nice little gathering of a lot of tastemakers in the city.
She included us in the Movers and Shakers group.
Right.
I'm impressed.
We felt very honored.
I really did. It was pretty cool, actually.
Their room was insane.
It was the guy who started Slow Roll.
Jason,
it was folks from the mayor's office. It was,
I'm really bummed I had something come up and couldn't go with you guys. That sounds like a great time.
Rachel Luss was there, all these people, and it was a love fest.
But anyway, it was my first time in the hotel. Like you said, it's this old fire station. It used to be the headquarters for the fire department in Detroit.
Exactly.
It's right across the street from Cobo Hall, right? So it's prime location.
Oh yeah, from 1998 to 2008, I worked across the street there.
Oh, did you really?
At Fort in Washington on the 13th floor of that brown building there when I worked for the Hudson Weber Foundation, and I would always gaze down at it and think like, gosh, it's got to become something, you know?
And they did a nice job. They kept all the glazed brick in there.
A lot of the original woodwork.
So there was one thing that was really interesting. So there were some firefighters there with us.
Oh, that was the best part. They could really talk to what it was like.
Except that they made this comment about the ceiling because the ceiling looks, looks older, looks antiquated, right? And he looks up at the ceiling and goes, "Yeah, our ceiling was much cleaner than that." It's like manufactured authenticity.
Manufactured dirt. Well, and also they said when they rebuilt the floor, there was all this big excitement to get the fire trucks back in there, but they miscalculated, and the floor was 4 inches too high.
Oh no!
So they went to this big theatrical, like, woohoo, we're back in a minute. They backed the fire trucks in and they hit.
Oh no!
So they never parked them in there again.
So they have fire poles in there. They're not the original fire poles, but they have fire poles in there. And then they actually connected this to the building that was next door. And the floors aren't on the same level, so they got to put stairs.
Some stairs in
as you
and
go.
such,
But did you look up in the there's that kind of where they used to hang the fire hose because they would let it drip dry there. And there's this beautiful glass sculpture, all these like little glass orbs that they've kind of put up there that you wouldn't even notice if you didn't look straight up above
Exactly.
you.
So they put the this little kitschy sign that says "Don't look up."
Right.
Yeah,
So everybody
and
looks
it
up.
was also the artist. I'm blanking on her name. I'm sorry, but she's a CCS professor, and apparently she was super pregnant when she installed that, and everyone was
wow.
a little bit nervous. But yeah, and Alex Porby designed all the light fixtures in there. He's a metal worker that in the late or mid 90s represented him at a gallery in Pontiac. So it's
cool.
just like all this full circle stuff. They genuinely used a lot of Detroit makers, artists, artisans.
Yeah,
so.
this is a company that
They care about what they're doing.
They do a lot of boutique hotels in different cities. This is their only one in Detroit.
Yes.
But they just broke ground on one in Birmingham. They
Correct.
said. Yeah, so there's a new one coming. But when they go into a city or a town and they build a hotel like this, they take a lot of care to really intertwine it with the community. You know?
yeah.
And so you've got all Detroit products in the rooms that they serve. You know, it's not like M&Ms and stuff like that. It's like, you know, it's like Detroit chips and Detroit.
They try to make it really accessible and open. Lots of price ranges of the food.
You're saying that the hotel is better made?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
Nice.
And the manager and his partner, they moved from St. Louis and have just embraced Detroit as their home. And
Yeah,
they said
it's
similar
cool.
to you, Jake, that they've never really felt, they've both moved around a lot and worked in a lot of different markets, and they've never felt as at home as they do here.
That's what I've always said. I've lived in different places, and I've never felt as welcomed as I did from when I first came here in 2011.
Yeah. I mean, he was moved to tears. It was.
So what we're saying is we understand why Time selected this
Yeah,
place.
yeah. So 100 greatest places to visit in the world. It was in a subcategory of places to stay. So.
Still in the 100, though.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Top 100 in the world. That's pretty impressive.
So there's official world record for Rosie the Riveters.
Okay.
Was set on October 14th, 2017 at Willow Run to save the bomber plant. There was 3,734 Rosies, including 57 World War II Rosies.
Those are the actual Rosie the Riveters that participated in World War II.
Yeah, because of course that wasn't one woman named Rosie. It was all the women contributing that.
And even though this happened, almost a year ago, what is this, like 10 months ago?
Yeah.
It just takes a while for them
For
to
it to be-
certify
yes.
that it's a record.
That's what I should say. It's
Do you
the
have
official now.
Do you have experience with that, Seth? Do you have any world records we should know about?
I have no world records.
Longest
that you should know
fingernails
About. No,
or-
nothing like that.
You were
Arius
trying-
chest?
Yeah,
Yeah.
No, nothing like that. You know who was involved with this, though? It was our friend Bailey Sissoy Isgro, who runs Detroit History Tours and the Detroit History Club. She was involved in this event, and she's a big Rosie fan. She's got the brand new children's book, Rosie, A Detroit Her Story, which is all about, Rosie the Riveter and turning it into a children's book. So, of course, because I sent this over to her. I was like, there's got to be a great promotional tie-in here. She's like,
I
She's
bet.
like,
Yes,
I get
I'm in that.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm ahead of you.
So I just have to mention, I know we've talked about Arts, Beats, and Eats. We've talked about the Jazz Festival, but there's two other huge things going on for Labor Day weekend. The Michigan State Fair at the Novi Suburban Collection Showplace. So if you want to see, the best butter.
I actually worked this event a couple of years ago when I was with 98.7 Amp Radio, and I hosted.
Okay.
I did some of the stage announcements for it. But I got to tell you, I love state fairs. And
you like the big butter cow and the baby animals.
So when I was at school in undergrad in Syracuse is the geographical center of New York. So the New York State Fair was just outside Syracuse every year. So every year we'd come back to school right around this time, right around Labor Day. We'd go out to the fair and there'd be a couple cool concerts. Like Ludacris was there this year. And you'd see the giant butterscotches. And then you get like the deep fried Oreos, which if you've never had, get the deep fried Oreos because it makes the chocolate all melty and gooey inside. And then when I worked in Vermont for several years at the beginning of my radio career, there was the Champlain Valley Fair. Now in Vermont, that was some damn good people watching, I got to tell you. It was like the people of Walmart just went out for their big one social event of the year and went to the fair, and it was epic.
Wow. Well, there you go. Are you going to go to the State Fair here?
There's so much to pick from this weekend. I know I'm going to have to leave the house. I just can't decide which one.
You need to go to something. And then the fourth choice, Hamtramck Labor Day Festival. Also the 39th annual. Started the same year as the Jazz Festival. The Monday night closer, music-wise, is Martha Reeves and the Vandellas.
Very cool.
Welcome to the D. Breathe, deep, deep, breathe.
Funny stuff.
All right, Jag, let's talk about stand-up comedy.
So Becky just mentioned all the stuff going on Labor Day weekend. Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle in Royal Oak is closed during Arts, Beats, and Eats during the holiday weekend, but they just announced they've got a special show Tuesday, September 4th. Jay Moore, big national comedian, very well known.
Oh, sure.
He's coming to Mark Ridley's on Tuesday, September 4th. If you're into comedy, you're going to want to check that out. Also, One Night Stands, that's the new comedy club opening in Waterford that Seth has been talking about recently. They've announced the lineup for their first month of shows, starting with Billy Ray Bauer the weekend of October 5th, and Rocky Laporte, another national name, going to be there as well.
Yeah, so this is Mike Green, local stand-up comedian, came up through Mark Ridley's Comedy Castle and worked there, and now he's got this brand new club that he's opening up. The website's not even up. The website won't even be out until September, but he's starting to book shows, and we're starting to see the names that he's bringing in, so it's exciting.
I love the name of the club, the One Night Stands.
Yes.
That's
I think it's because the other guy, like the other partner in it,
More of a silent partner?
Well, I think his name is Stan. So
That's what
think
I assumed.
yes,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Also this weekend, Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase has recovering lawyer Connie Ettinger.
Another Michigander.
Yep. The Holly Hotel has the very funny Zach Martina.
I said it before, I'll say it again. He was our first ever guest on this podcast.
Yes.
That dude is funny.
That is
too.
his claim to fame, first ever guest
Yes,
in the debrief.
that's his
I think he
biggest
puts
credit.
that on the top of his resume.
If you've wanted to check out a comedy show, but you want to bring in the kids, you're a little bit leery of some of the content, Big Tommy's in Novi has Keith Ruff. He's billed as funny and clean as well.
Is that a thing? Is that possible?
Yeah, you can be. I mean, my wife always says that. She's like, "I'll laugh at a dirty joke, but only if it's funny." She's
Well,
like,
exactly.
She's like, if you can't just take the low hanging fruit and make a
No.
dirty joke, like
No.
you've got to have a thought to it and be. You can be
Yes.
funny without being dirty.
Here's the thing. It
True.
is harder to be a clean comic.
It is.
Yeah.
harder.
And every comic, if they want to make it to a certain level, has to be able to work clean.
Sure.
Because first of all, there's money there. You know, you
Right.
get hired by churches or businesses or this, that, the other thing.
Churches book comedians. That's
Sure.
Oh my God! Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
whole circuit. Like, if you're you could like, there's a whole circuit if you're a Christian comedian or if you're a Jewish comedian or whatever.
Well, all comedians are Jewish.
No, believe it
Those
or
are
not.
my people.
But the other thing is that you want to be able to work clean in case you ever get asked to work on TV. You know, and this was especially true in the late night television days,
Yeah.
where you
You go on Leno or
right,
Letterman
who
or-
will ask
okay.
you to do your 5-minute set. But you have, cruises are
Charity
huge.
events.
Charity
Oh,
events.
I was just on a cruise. The comedian was not clean.
Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, not always, but
Well,
but
it-
sometimes you'll be asked to work
Okay.
clean.
We
and
went
it's
to
hard.
a clean comedian on a cruise ship, and actually he was funny. Yeah.
And I would say that sometimes you have a joke that's almost there, and you need like a swear word to push it over the edge.
Right.
For the right emphasis?
Well, because it's not quite funny
need that
enough,
little
and
bit
so
of
you need that
emphasis.
extra.
It's like a cheat.
It's totally a cheat. Oh, it's
Yeah.
absolutely a cheat. Yeah. So
One other note for this weekend, Planet Ant has the White Flash album release party this Friday night.
I also want to make one note. We had Jeff Horst on the show last week.
Oh, right. You went to his thing, right?
yeah.
Oh, the
'cause-
viewing party.
So Friday night was him on Comedy Central. This is Kevin Hart Presents The Next Level. It was him doing half an hour of comedy on national television. And he had the viewing party for everybody who wanted to go see it over at Zeke's Barbecue in Ferndale. And I went, and I got to tell you, like, it's been a while since I've done stand-up comedy, since I've seen a lot of these people. There were so many comedians there. And I think that sometimes when you talk to stand-up comedians, you can hear about, there's jealousy or there's backbiting or there's this, that, and the other thing. We heard this from Heather J. when we asked him about Jeff Horst. She said, he is just a really nice guy. And I think it really showed because so many local comedians came out just to support him and just to say, look, it's one of ours who made it onto national television. It was really cool to see. There's a
That's
couple
awesome.
of photos in our Instagram feed.
And that's a nice reflection on Jeff, too, obviously.
I think it is. And he killed it. And yeah, it was absolutely amazing. So, you never know. There have been comedians that have broken out of this area. You mentioned Keegan-Michael Key, who's out of the improv side, but Tim Allen comes from this area. Dave Coulier of Full House comes from this area. So there are guys who have broken out of here, and we may see a few more. You never know.
This is the D.
Detroit.
This is the D.
Brief.
All right, guys, that's the show.
We got it done.
Man, we got a 3-day weekend coming up.
I know. Exciting.
I want to say thank you to our guests, Gary Graff, the music writer, Jon Witz. Go out to Arts, Beats, and Eats. It's an absolutely fantastic event. You got 3 days, so you can do that. You can do the Jazz Festival. You can go see
Hamtramck.
Jag's butter sculptures or whatever.
Out in Novi.
I think he entered one. Yeah.
Right, did you?
It was a butter sculpture of Tom Brady.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Don't forget, on Thursday's episode, we have Michael Rothstein the beat writer for the Detroit Lions for ESPN and ESPN.com.
Yes.
So you're definitely going to want to hear that conversation, especially if you're a sports fan. Right?
And even if you're not a sports fan, we've got a lot of non-sports stuff we want to cover with him that's not about X's and O's in the football field.
So also, please subscribe and leave a review for this show wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify. We've got a mobile app. If you prefer to listen that way, it makes it really easy. Plus, we are now in your Amazon Echo. All you have to do is say, Alexa,
enable the Debrief podcast.
got it memorized. All right, that's it for us. Hey, we'll see you on Thursday. And until then, Detroit's moving.
Keep up.
The Debrief.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.